And we're back. I'm Mia Zachary, and this is Elemental Abundance, and it is another gorgeous, gorgeous, perfect evening here in the Village Connector Community Studios. I am here with my two favorite people in the whole wide world, my soulmate and my guide, my mentor, my partner, Garnes, and my spirit guide, my kite string, my treasured friend, Renee Canali. Thank you both so much for joining me this evening. And
I love when she introduces like that. That's just like wonderful. I should just take her on the road whenever I'm speaking to you.
Let me introduce this great guy and this amazing woman who stands on tippy toes and hugs from her heart and all those other things we usually say about you. Now, despite the lighthearted mood in the room tonight, we're actually going to be talking about struggle. If you can believe that. We have done these kind of conversations for my podcast, which you can find at www.mentaldancing.com before. And actually, after the audio went off one time, we started this conversation. I'm like, no, wait, hold it until we can record it. So what I had said at the time was, there's a lot of people who I think if you ask them, they would say that they're struggling. And so my purpose for this show is to meet people where they are and invite them to come along on my journey to personal development and to enlightenment. And I'm not claiming to be any kind of an expert. I'm not claiming that I have mastered this in any way, shape, or form. I'm just inviting you to come along on the journey, and I'm going to do my best to lift you as I climb. But I think if you asked, most people would say, yeah, I'm struggling with money, I'm struggling with my family, I'm struggling with my job, I'm struggling, in all areas of my life. And what I had said to Renee and to Glenn was, based on my own experience, I think struggle is necessary. I think you need some level of struggle. And my analogy was, these little tiny seeds, because Renee likes to garden, these little tiny seeds, that are deep below the dirt. And, the ones that don't do anything, that they just sit there on the couch watching seed TV, they're never going to get anywhere. And there's other seeds that are like, well, I don't know how to grow and to struggle and to do this on my own. I'm going to wait for somebody else to grow me. But that little seed that's willing to put in the effort, that little seed that's willing to push up against the dirt and try to get its head, above the ground level, that's the one that eventually is going to turn into a 200-foot sequoia. Now, when I said this, you guys kind of had differing opinions when I said that struggle was necessary. So, bring it on.
Well, I have to, first of all, I have a seed story.
Okay.
And this happened on Facebook today. So one of our very dear friends, who I'm not going to mention by name, posted a picture of a little baby pig on my news feed, and it said bacon seed. So just, it's all right. You can laugh out loud. This is
I'm struggling over here.
You're struggling to laugh or struggling not to laugh. All right. So anyway, but there was. I don't remember what position I took on this. I hope that
Well, what position do you have now?
Well, I think that I characterize struggle differently as opposed to looking at, I think that when people say I'm struggling, they look at that as a negative thing.
Right.
So I guess I acknowledge struggle, but I also understand that the role that struggle plays in accomplishment. So for me, struggle is kind of preparation for whatever's next. And it's kind of funny because I had forgotten what the topic was going to be today. And so
this is live, folks, indeed.
it is. I mean, let me put it this way. I wasn't thinking about the topic. That's a better way to say it. And I just happened to be listening to a CD while I was traveling around the car today. And there was a reference to a caterpillar who was struggling to get out of its cocoon to become a butterfly. And a man saw the caterpillar struggling and took out his pocket knife and manually opened up the cocoon for it, and the caterpillar died. Mm-hmm. And what he learned from that experience was that the caterpillar needed to go through the struggle to prepare for the next phase of its existence. And so I look at struggle very much that way, that whatever is happening to you is happening for you, and in that context that you're actually being prepared through whatever the struggle is for what's next, the next challenge you're going to face, or the next circumstance, the next whatever is out there for you.
Preparing to be a sequoia.
If that's what your vision is, I've never prepared myself to be a sequoia, but you could probably do that if that would make you happy.
Okay.
You know? Just don't struggle through it the way that a lot of people do.
Well, and that's kind of the point. So I'd say for you, then maybe this quote by Frederick Douglass is appropriate, possibly, that if there is no struggle, there is no progress.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Where'd you get that?
I found it on the internet, so it must be true.
That's right. Along with all those Abraham
Lincoln
quotes about Facebook, right?
Right.
Yes.
No, and that does kind of embody it. It's most people grow because of the challenges they face, not because of the victories that they have. You learn more from your mistakes, supposedly. I mean, I don't even call them mistakes. I think that we create learning experiences. You know, people that work in a scarcity place call those mistakes. But if they're learning, they're only mistakes if you keep making, if you're not learning anything from them, as far as I'm concerned. Right. So that Frederick Douglass quote kind of encapsulates exactly what it's about. You are making progress. You know, it's not a matter. What was the quote again?
Oh, the quote is, "If there is no struggle, there is no
progress." That's right. So, if that's basically a mindset. You're talking about adopting a mindset that allows you to see the struggle as a value as opposed to something to be avoided.
So that's where I come in. So from the little gardener over here,
our favorite gardener,
there is a time, I think, that everybody has what most of us would agree is struggle. The time where you're growing against yourself because you're evolving. 2-year-olds, man, do they struggle.
Some 20 and 50-year-olds too.
Yes, and I have another theory about that. That's another episode. But there are times that you have to go through a period where you are really strongly putting effort forth to do something different, even if you have no idea what it is, just because what you're handling is not what you're comfortable handling at that moment. Mistakes or not, whether you move forward or not, it is something that's necessary. However, when the seed breaks through the ground and realizes that there's something else to reach for, the struggle changes, so does the mindset. For most people. Sometimes we get stuck in that place and struggle with changing the definition of struggle. And we hold on to the fact that we have to keep doing that. Whereas my perception is the more that you grow, the more that you learn, the more that you take the lesson from the mistake, the less struggle you actually end up having.
So is that your definition of struggle? What is your definition of struggle?
I think struggle is a place that we have to come from and come through in order for us to live a better life than what we're currently experiencing.
Okay.
I think a lot of people get stuck, though, in their struggle because they either don't realize that there's something that more for them that they can grow into, or they don't know how to grow into the next phase, or they look at it and it's too hard. It's too hard. So I think a lot of the day-to-day struggles, the typical struggles that people face, they kind of got themselves there. In my experience, I think I was there. I recognize now that I'm kind of on the other side of severe major depression, and a lot of the other things that I was struggling through, that that was an opportunity for growth. That was an opportunity to learn what I don't want in life. That was an opportunity to recognize that, you know what, if you're struggling long enough and it starts to frustrate you enough and it starts to piss you off enough, that you're going to go, you know what, there's got to be another way. I'm going to find it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to, do whatever it takes to get out of this. But, I feel like the audience for this radio show, the audience, you guys out there listening, a lot of people don't know what to do. What's the first step in recognizing that you are struggling and that there's another way to go through your growth period?
Well, again, I think it depends on how you view struggle. I mean, let's look at it this way.
Well, I'm kind of thinking of not necessarily the three of us, but people who haven't started their personal development journey yet.
Right. So most people who are experiencing struggle, they view it, as I said, as something negative because they don't know how to define it and have it play a positive role in their journey. If struggle is a passage, a place through which you have to pass, making the decision to resist the passage, it's like wanting to go from here to California but not wanting to get on the highway.
It's like wanting the baby but not wanting the labor pains that have to go through it.
That's another way to express it. So you have to look at what is your attitude towards struggle. Is it an opportunity for you to learn and grow? Because remember, most of us, we get comfortable. We want to be in our comfort zone. We want things to be effortless, and we don't want to experience discomfort. We have been taught by society to avoid that. When you think about it, when you go to the gym, what do they say? No pain, no gain.
Right,
okay?
right.
In life, you have to get better at who you are, and getting better means making a commitment to learning new things, which sometimes can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Anytime something's new, it requires you to do something that you're not accustomed to. But the entire process of evolving is like that. There's four levels of consciousness. I've actually mentioned these before. I can't remember whether we talked about them on the show or not. But most of us start off in a place where we're unconsciously incompetent at something, meaning that we don't know what we don't know.
Okay.
And at some point in time, we become aware of what we don't know, which means we're now consciously incompetent, where we know that we don't know. Now, where the struggle comes into play is when we have to make a choice to learn that thing that we now know we don't know, or allow ourselves to remain where we are. And a lot of us will make the decision to remain where we are and experience the discomfort, the struggle of not making a decision to move forward, or we'll take the next step, which is to move towards conscious competence, where we invest our time to learn the thing that we need to know. That creates a little struggle because when it's something new, it takes a little time to get used to the anything that we do in life, whether you're learning math, whether you're making a commitment to change your nutrition habits, everything that we do that's different than what we're accustomed to requires effort. And effort is really just the thing that overcomes struggle. If you're struggling with something, it's because you're putting effort into becoming prepared to deal with that circumstance, whatever it is.
So one more time, so step one was
unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know.
Okay.
I'm in ignorance.
Okay. And then step two was
I know
conscious
that I don't know this
incompetence.
thing. That's right. That's
Okay.
conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know.
Okay.
And then if you make the choice to acquire the skills, to travel the path, to become competent, you're consciously competent at that point,
Okay.
meaning that you have to stop and think about it.
Okay.
But you can still do it.
Gotcha.
Like when you first learned how to tie your shoes, you could do it, but you had to think of this loop over this one, pull this one tight.
Bunny ears.
Yeah, bunny ears, exactly. But you had to stop and think in those terms. Once you do that enough times, you become so used to it that it becomes second nature to you, it becomes a habit for you. And at that point, you are now unconsciously competent.
Okay, so that's the fourth step.
The fourth one is
Okay.
unconscious competence.
Okay.
So we move from unconsciously incompetent to unconsciously competent. Think about when the last time you got in the car and you drove someplace that you're used to going on a regular basis. And you get there and you can't remember how
How
you
did I
got
get
there.
here? I don't remember this entire drive.
That's unconscious competence at your commute, whatever you want to call it.
Gotcha.
So the struggle comes when you make the decision to go from conscious incompetence. There's no struggle to be unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know
Right.
that you should be doing anything. But once you are aware that you're incompetent and you're looking to do something about it, that's where the struggle begins. And it's a choice that people make, that I'm going to make the effort, the struggle, to become better at what I'm doing, so that I can have what's on the other side, which is the ability to have that become second nature to me.
Gotcha.
Now, one thing that occurs to me as you're talking is a question that maybe somebody in the audience would ask. So, I know that I don't like the situation that I'm in, and I am willing to try something. And I've gotten advice, and it's pretty good advice because the person has gone through this or works in that area or whatever. And no matter how I keep working on this, and no matter how much I work on this, I'm not getting anywhere. Well, that's a different kind of struggle. And what people might not realize is that you're not in one of those 4 places for your entire life. You're in one of those 4 places when it comes to work or relationships, or, you know, pulling yourself through something that internally there's a conflict. You know, I was raised this way and it doesn't fit me. So I keep going back to this and it feels worse. And they don't understand some of the dynamic that's underneath, because they're thinking, I've been doing this, I've been learning this, I've been taking action, and I'm still sitting here going, crap, I'm still in pain. I still hate this. And I'm doing my very best.
I think maybe that goes back to one of the things Glenn said about the
4 levels
conscious,
of
about the conscious incompetence, about having to learn new things. I think the most important thing that we have to learn is new things about ourselves.
Yes.
Or maybe not even new things, but just recognize things that are already in place. For example, one of the hardest things that I had to struggle with, and let me go ahead and give you the email address now before I even say this. You can reach us at feelgood@elementalabundance.com. So before I even say this, let me let you know how to contact us with your comments and questions. One of the things that I know could be perceived as a controversial statement is that my struggle with depression, I had control over that the whole time. I had the ability to come out of that the whole time. It wasn't the therapist, it wasn't the medications, it wasn't, you know, the booze or the drugs or the sex or any of the other things that I tried to mask that pain with. It was me finally deciding that I'm not going to struggle through this anymore. I have the power to learn about myself, to learn why I'm more comfortable in the depression than I am in happiness, and to finally admit that I'm struggling because I chose to, because I always have a choice about the reality that I'm creating. And that is a hell of a stuck place for a lot of people, because they don't want to do the work to learn about themselves. They don't want to look in that mirror and go, ugh, wow, I'm unhappy because I chose to be unhappy because unhappiness feels comfortable to me. I'm struggling because that's what I'm comfortable with, is struggling.
Well, sometimes, and I'd like to know how you relate this to your experience. Sometimes you're at such a place where the pain is the comfortable place, and you know you don't want it, but you're almost paralyzed, because you do have to have something to be able to look inside of you. So what for you broke that realization so that you could look inside? Because many depressed people that I've talked with say, I didn't identify myself, everything was me. So they didn't have they couldn't see where they stopped and the rest of the world's pain ended.
I don't know how to answer that, Only because, as my psychotherapist used to tell me, you're smart enough to get your own PhD in psychology. You know exactly what's happening. You just don't know how to stop it. So yeah, Matt's always like, why are we in therapy? You know, so for me, it was a matter of not necessarily being unable to identify what was me and what was other. It was a matter of stop blaming all the others for what I was going through. It wasn't my boss's fault that I hated my job. It wasn't my coworker's fault that I didn't want to be there. It wasn't my ex-husband's fault that I was miserable in that marriage. It all came down to me. It all came down to, you know, my responsibilities and my choices. So I think it comes down to, and this is going to sound crazy, and I know that, but your life can change in the speed of a choice. Your life can change at the speed of a decision, and I know that because when my brother found me with that empty bottle of wine and the knife in my hand and the paramedics were standing over me, I had the opportunity to make a decision right then and there. I could choose to keep doing what I was doing, and who has the quote about doing the same thing over and over again?
Einstein.
Yeah, what's the quote? Something about
The definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
Right. So I made a decision that day on my failed suicide attempt that I was going to be crazy but not insane.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to discuss on another show what
Yeah.
the difference is, but I think the end result ends up being about the same.
No. Well, crazy is more creative. Insane is, like you just said, it's doing the same things over and over again. So
Insane is not realizing you're crazy.
well, that is a conversation for another time. But I think to try to answer your question, it was having to look in the mirror, really, and go, is this what you want? Do you want your brother to have to explain to your son why you're not here anymore? And for me, that was a really big turning point because I had to look at everything that was making me unhappy, everything that I was blaming for my unhappiness, and go, okay, wait a minute. I keep hearing all this crap about attitude of gratitude, but it's true. It's absolutely true. I credit gratitude with turning my life around 180 degrees. And, you know, a dear friend introducing me to certain books which are on the table in front of us. But
You didn't read all those, did you?
You didn't recommend
no,
all
you
those.
didn't recognize all. But yeah, I think for me, I was able to get out of a lot of those struggle patterns when I, number one, decided that I was going to stay here. Number two, I decided to stop blaming everybody else for my unhappiness. And number three, I started, you know, looking at things and going, okay, I can be great. I don't have this, or 100 other things I don't have, but I do have this. And I can be grateful for this one thing on this one day, and I can take it one day at a time. And maybe, you know, that's a takeaway that somebody can have. How do I get out of the struggle?
So stop there for just a minute, though. You hear what you just said, though. You kept hearing this attitude of gratitude, and you needed to change your attitude about what that meant. Because originally you thought it was hokey and stupid to hear, but something caused you to shift your mindset about how you received that. All of a sudden, gratitude had meaning to you as opposed to just something you hear people talking about. And when you started to really explore what it meant to be in an attitude of gratitude or what it meant to truly express gratitude, it gave you a different perspective, a mindset shift.
Yes.
And see, most people, the challenge that we have in life is that most of us are at some level of comfort even in our pain. Mm-hmm. And the comfort in the pain is because it's familiar to us. And so sometimes change is unfamiliar, so pain remains something familiar. We're more likely to stay with what's familiar than embrace something that's unknown to us.
It's a coping mechanism.
That's right. But that also is a mindset issue.
Yes.
Because then once you learn how to embrace change, now all of a sudden you don't want to ever stay where you are.
Right, right.
That four-step consciousness is a process, it's a transitional process that we constantly repeat. The more you embrace the concept of, let me find something I don't know and go learn it.
Right.
As opposed to, it just dawns on you one day, and now you're fearful to do anything about it because it's different. It's going to require you to get up off the couch and take some action. That's not familiar to you. Sitting on the couch watching television is. Now all of a sudden, you're embracing the concept of looking for the challenge, looking for the struggle, the so-called struggle.
Right.
Because your mindset changes. It's no longer a struggle. It's a new challenge. It's a new thing to be experienced.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit of a growth process that we
Sometimes a lot.
Yeah, it does. It can. It doesn't have to be a lot, but this is why people's attitudes towards these things ends up dictating at what point the light bulb goes on for them. Some people stay in darkness their entire lives because they just choose to do what's familiar to them.
Right.
And depending on what they've been conditioned to experience or conditioned to accept as the hand that they're dealt, so to speak, they may stay there their entire lives.
Well, one of the
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you what you meant by coping mechanism.
Well, growing up, we all go through, like I said, the terrible twos, right? You go through periods of time where you have to learn how to make yourself happy. And in order to do that, you come up with a coping mechanism, something that helps you get you through the times that you're not able to do that for yourself. And depending on what your conditioning was, sometimes we hold on to that coping mechanism throughout our entire life without stepping back and looking at it saying, I keep choosing to blame other people. I keep choosing to hurt this bad. Is there anything else that I can do? Why am I doing this if I know, I know that this is insanity. Why do I keep doing it? And it's really not the why, the figuring out in your head the why. It's really understanding what is my mindset about this. And I always see it, for me, this experience I have it as a value conflict. Do I value what I brought with me, this coping mechanism that doesn't apply to my life now? Or do I value the fact that if I don't take responsibility for myself, that I can blame other people? And then, since I live in the world of
Yes.
and if I don't like either of those choices, what is a choice that I can make?
Well, being able to blame others for what you perceive to be your negative experiences in life is another one of those places that people are comfortable. And that part of it is societal conditioning, and part of it is just not understanding that you do have the power to create the circumstances that you want in your life.
Right.
Oh my gosh, can I quote you for a moment?
I charge extra for that.
Okay, that's all right. I'm willing to pay this because you had a gorgeous quote on one of the episodes that we did before, and I just loved what you said. You said that if you can create misery in your life, you can create change in your life.
Ooh, that is good.
I know, that was really good. I was really proud of you.
Since you don't recognize it,
You'll take credit for it?
Yeah, there we go. So this is what Renee said. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Since he doesn't remember, I'm going to give that quote to Renee. Renee said, if you can make misery in your life, you can also make change.
As long as I don't see Abraham Lincoln being quoted
No,
tomorrow.
I don't think that's going to happen. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the fact that we had this opportunity to share with you. I hope that you have been listening to the messages and not necessarily just the messengers, although I do love these two people dearly. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can shoot us an email, feelgood@elementalabundance.com. You can also join our Facebook community, which is facebook.com/mental dancing. And you can also follow me on all social platforms. Periscope and Twitter is @mental dancing, and Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is also @mental dancing.
What is that again?
Yeah, I know, I'm not saying that again. So thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, I wish you joy.